Once you go down that rabbit hole and you figure out what's true to you and what you really like, I don't think so there's any force in this world that will stop you from being the greatest. I was a trouble kid. I moved 5 different high schools just because I kept getting kicked out. I don't want to disappoint my dad. So that's why I have this double life. At night, I have this whole record label life that I live with artists. So Roy Woods was there, Smiley was there, Chubbs, like the entire OVO crew was there.
Do you still feel like part of you is trying to fit that norm or prove something?
You are now in the element, where we dive into raw stories and vibrant journeys that shape who we are. Let's get in the element.
Welcome back in the Element podcast. I'm here with Nour Henien. He's an artist manager and label owner, and I'm very excited to get into his story. Nour, welcome.
Thank you so much, Reem. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm Nour Henien, an artist manager, label owner. Born in Egypt, raised in the UAE my whole life, and I moved to Canada in 2015, and it's been a journey since.
What was it like moving from Dubai to Canada? Like,
To be
what are
honest-
the biggest differences you see?
I have a crazy answer for this one. So I always thought that, being brought up in the UAE was always an unfair game. Why? Because that country is so spoiled. Like they have every sort of amenity, service, product, solution you could think of. Like
Yeah.
life over there was actually very, very comfortable, right? To the point where my parents were both like working parents. So both my parents were pharmacists. They worked with like very big multinational pharmaceutical firms, both on the regulatory side of stuff. So they were like big in like politics and pharmacy, the crossroad of both. So like living in the UAE was like a very, very interesting time. It was also a very beautiful time. But then when I moved to Ottawa in 2015, from Dubai to Ottawa,
It's a big shift.
it's a very, very big shift, that's for sure. But then number two, it really showed me that Dubai's fake. Ottawa was real life.
Yeah.
And I think that transition
It's been very
struck-
sobering, right?
Yeah, that, and two, now after 8 years being in Canada and reflecting back on my time, right? Had I stayed in the UAE, I don't think I would have bred a version of myself that Canada created, right? So the first year for me coming to Ottawa from Dubai was actually very, very, very dark because I was always like fixated about my friends and family, and I wanted to be close with them, but I was not close with them and was far and time difference. So that kind of a little bit played with my mental, but I adapted. And through my time in university, we've managed to build a lot of family that was generated through friendships that were created and built. And so Nour 8 years ago would hate the move. Nour 8 years later is probably thankful of the move because
In retrospect.
exactly, in retrospective, and like looking back at the different valuable lessons and experiences that I've encountered, because all these valuable lessons and experiences have basically shaped my character today.
Yeah. You also, I think when we were talking earlier, you're saying how in Dubai, the music industry, like there isn't the same infrastructure as there is here in like North America, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Dubai is going to be the flashpoint of like the entertainment industry, because everything in the entertainment industry is all about flashiness, right? Canada is a very like really cool place for artists, and I'm saying this from a point of view of a manager that has lived in a different country for a very long, extensive period of time, where we also have a lot of artists. Like I'm Egyptian, and Egypt is for sure known to be like the Hollywood of the Arab world. We print out so many actors, artists, filmmakers, musicians, like the list goes on, and there's nothing in the Middle East. You know what I mean? Like there's not much of that support. And being in my position, I think there's this obligation that I feel is important to me, is to help provide some of the resources that are available here that support a creator economy here in Canada, and push that support in my country back home, which
Yeah.
is Egypt, right? And where I've lived, Dubai.
Absolutely. I want to go back in time a little bit because you started talking about some of the friendships that you built when you first moved to Canada and how it helped you kind of find your footing and going into the artist world and this industry from your background must have been a big jump, right? Because I believe, what did you study in university?
I went to Telford School of Management at the
Okay.
University of Ottawa. I studied finance as my main degree and entrepreneurship as a secondary degree.
Okay, so it is actually kind of related, like the business side of things to your
Of
current
course,
job.
yeah. So the way I look at this industry is that there are creatives and non-creatives. And the role of non-creatives is to support creatives, right? Because the creatives can't be creative and still also focus on non-creative aspects of their work, right? So now when you think about that concept, the non-creative is anyone that works in the business side of the industry. Whether it be, the managers, the touring agents, your distributors, like all these functions that, make the music industry, right? All these players, right? And then you have the creatives, which are like your producers, your creative directors, your artists, songwriters, your engineers, your photographers, your videographers, like all those people can be bucketed as the creatives, right? So there has to be this like nice synchronous relationship between both,
Yeah.
that they almost have to essentially complement both. Because if they don't complement both, then there's going to be a disconnect. It's either the artist will fail, management won't know what to do, or management is probably greedy, artist is not really succeeding that much. Like there will be different combinations of errors that will hinder the progress of an artist.
So in your own words, how would you describe the role of an artist manager?
I would describe the role of an artist manager as a liaison dot connector, a spokesperson on behalf of the artist in general. And what that means is that when you look at an artist, and especially when it comes to development is in many different aspects, right? You develop sonically. So when we talk about sonics, we talk about sound recordings, like what, you know, his voice, the production, the
The
beats, the
audio.
audio itself. Like there's a brand to be built in that domain, which is the sonics, right? And then the other domain would be the visuals. So anything that has to do with like cover arts, pictures, shoots, press images, creative direction, video, like all these common elements, those are another domain. And then the third domain would be basically the release plan, because when you look at an artist and how an artist makes money, right? Or what does the artist need to create in order to make money? So it's one, record an album, two, create the visuals, put all the imaging together because you need audio and video to complement the story. And then once that is done, you put it into a marketing plan that amplifies that message, right? So basically audio, so sonics, video, and then post release plan, or call it marketing, if you will, in order to popularize the song. So an artist manager connects the dots for the artist in all three domains to make sure that the artist A sounds good, looks good, and is streaming.
Your role is building relationships with people within this industry, but it's also understanding end to end how this whole process works and making sure that you're really maximizing that outcome for the artist, right? Which is
Absolutely.
maximum engagement, really bringing their voice out as much as you can.
Of course.
So how involved would you be at the creative side of things in terms of like, do you advise the artist when it comes to the type of music that they're releasing?
Yes, so we do have that mechanism. And, since you're talking about these different sides, I own a record label 22 called 22 Sounds with my partners, Ben McKinley and Andrew Peterson. Andrew Peterson is one of the greatest songwriters I've ever seen so far. He's super talented. And when we talk about the sonics portion, Andrew is at the forefront of building these smart connections, because Andrew as an artist and a songwriter and producer as well, is able to understand the creative very well. So he's able to pair up people in rooms that make sense and that end up creating really good records. So a claim to fame to Andrew is that he's a very big songwriter in the K-pop world. He's written a few number ones
K-pop.
with a bunch of really big brands. So that's Andrew. Ben is the glue from an operational perspective. So we talk about like all the legal work, we get all the producers sorted, payments done, everything is good, like helping with the schedule. And then I come in as also helping Ben and Andrew on the operational side and making sure, you know, the artist is at the same, at the spot, at the locations he needs to be, is with the producers that he needs to be. So, you know, I execute all the plans that me and my partners put forth and bring them to life.
Okay.
So that's how the dynamic. So it's, again, music is all about communities, and it's all about team building and putting the right people together in order to complement the artist and his brand and his image. Very grateful to have a very good set of team members that, you know, I work with very closely side by side.
Yeah, because I feel like with like the music industry, you see the front end a lot, which is the person, the performer, the artist. And I feel like back end, there's so much that goes on to like make sure things run smoothly, make sure that, you know, the marketing side of things, from that to like the audio, like to everything. I feel like it's such an interesting process to understand like what goes behind it, right? What goes on
course.
behind the scenes. What made you want to go into this space in the first place? Like, was it your love for music? Was it your love for building relationships? Like,
It's actually a combination of a few things. One, love of music. Two, would be wanting to be in a position to uplift unheard voices, essentially. And I'll tie that back into my roommate and how all things started. So Shaz, being a multi-million-dollar kid, my first friend in Canada, my roommate, shout out Shaz. I was his first ever fan. I was his first ever listener. The first time this artist, producer, ever created music and showed me how talented he is, I automatically became a fan. Because at that moment, Shaz kind of walked me into the world of production, how music gets produced, what gets produced. And because he was my roommate, I think that was a very
you got to
big,
see firsthand
I
like
got,
his
yeah,
day in the life.
Yes, exactly. I got to see exclusive, in the mix insights on how tracks are produced, right? Or how do you go about producing a track? So I'm forever grateful for that, for those times in university, and what Shaz has managed to show me, because that then transformed into everything I'm doing right now. So when I look at other examples of producers in the industry that have a name or have some sort of motion going on, and I kind of dig deep in terms of like their music ability, which is basically their ability to like play instruments or, you know, mess around with different tools, different instruments. I felt that like Shaz was an underdog, and I just wanted to represent him and maybe use Shaz as a case study throughout university, that I could build a persona from dorm to stage. And that kind of, those were like the initial thoughts that I had that made me want to, that basically built a drive in myself to like, okay, there's a bunch of kids or a bunch of people that are super talented that don't have any sort of business support. How can I be that business support and help them elevate their talent? And then from there, it basically unfolded to 22 Sounds. And then the discovery with Naeem was actually very, very cool. I don't know Naeem. So Naeem is the recording artist that I manage at the moment. So I never really knew the guy. You know, like when I first discovered him, he wasn't a friend.
So he's an artist?
Naeem's an artist,
Yeah.
yeah. But I didn't know Naeem like on a friendship basis, you know, because most artist managers and artists are like essentially French people that are in the group or in the
You like
community.
meet them through other people,
You meet
like
the-
acquaintances.
not just acquaintances and other people, but essentially you like, they're your friends. Like imagine like me and you were friends, right? And we have a small little group friend. You decide to become an artist, and then you're like, oh, here's my best friend. You're now my manager, right?
Yeah.
So it's always based on that type of structure, right?
It's also like you talked about your willingness to kind of introduce people, different people through different networks, right? And it's very
Exactly.
innate too to just do that.
Exactly, 100%. It's a mutual gain. You know,
Right.
it's a benefit for all parties, right? So Naeem, the discovery process was basically through SoundCloud. In second year, I had walked out of a very long, boring, Telfer lectures. Those like 7 to 10.
I know the ones.
They're just so lame. You walk out, it's 10 p.m. It's dark as hell. Like, so music was kind of like the only method walking back from class to dorms to just like brighten up my day. So when I walked out of that lecture, I remember I plugged my headphones into my phone. I put my headphones on. I shuffled. I didn't even select a song. I opened the app and I just shuffled the entire application to songs. So the first track that played was a song called 2-3 by Naeem. That was a masterpiece.
Was it the first time you heard it?
That was the first time I ever heard that song. That was the first time I've ever discovered an artist named Naeem on SoundCloud. So, and I remember I used to live in 45 Man, so all the way at the end of campus. So the walk from the business school to all the way to my dorm was like around 15, 20-minute walk. So I had this, 2-3 was like a 2.5, 3-minute tops song in total. I had that song repeated on for 20 minutes until I got home, you know? That's how much I loved the song. I still do love it. But, you know, Naeem has his own opinions about it. The song is no longer available on any streaming platform. No one
He
will have.
removed it.
He removed it. He removed
Whoa.
it. Yeah. Because that's like,
Gee.
yeah. No, I got that experience, you know?
Wow.
And then when I got back home and I went up to my roommate, Shaz, I was so excited about that song. I just wanted to play it to him. So I jump on his computer, plugged the speakers in. I played the song and we were just vibing. And Jazz was like, yo, this is a really dope song. Like, who's the artist? And then Shaz listens a little bit more closely. He's like, bro, is that Naeem? Like, is that Naeem? I'm like, how the hell do you know that artist? He's like, bro, he's my brother's best friend. I was like, whoa. So he ends up FaceTiming his brother, Zach, who's an incredible magician. And Naeem happened to be with Zach. That's when I met Naeem on FaceTime for the first time ever.
You're like, hey, bro, I just heard your song.
Yeah, like exactly. And I was a fan at that time. So then from that moment, you know, followed Naeem on Instagram.
Like when you, just want to ask you, like when you heard the song, was your first instinct to be like, I want other people to hear this? Like I want the word to come out? Or did that come later?
100%. 100%. And I wish Naeem was here with us today to explain to you the other side of the story, right? So when I found the song, I had a lot of thoughts in my head. I just couldn't, you know, I wanted to like sit down and just throw my thoughts on the wall, right? Or on sort of paper just to figure out what I want to do. So I would always go to the Telfer financial lab. Should be doing financial work, but I was just doing
with all like the big computers.
Yeah. I had 2 screens, fancy keyboards, but I was like researching record labels and like artists and different like marketing plans.
You're like, sorry, mom and dad, I know you had other plans for me, but here I am.
Exactly. So at that time, I sat down in the finance lab and I just built this whole PowerPoint presentation about like an entertainment company idea that involved, you know, ticketing companies, involved, you know, artist management, DJ management, like a bunch of different functions. But like, again, that presentation that I built for myself was just all my thoughts. And I formulated them in a way that I was visiting my mom back in Toronto in one of those like, you know, winter breaks. So I reached out to Naeem. I'm like, oh, I really want to meet you, man. I'm in the city. So he's like, yeah, pull up to Shaz's older brother's house, Zach, and, you know, let's meet up. So I go there. There was another producer named Alec, super fantastic, talented individual. He owns a very big recording studio called 412 in Toronto. It was me, Alec, and Naeem and Zach, and I literally presented an entire presentation telling them that I want to be an artist manager. Like, this is what I want.
That was like your big pitch.
Yeah, that was like my biggest pitch of my life. Because from that pitch, this is where everything came from, you know, like, and it was a pitch to friends that like believed in it, right? So, and then from that moment onward, you know, went back to university. I had to finish my 2 years because I was in second year university. And then throughout those 2 years, I built this DJ collective called Guys in Ottawa. And we were basically just taking Shaz and a bunch of other DJs like Omar and Kareem. And we would just, you know, do shows and have, you know, good entertainment nights in Ottawa in different venues. And then we partnered up with another like fashion company called Zargara Label. Shout out my brother Amir. He gave us a very good helping hand in Ottawa in terms of popularity because we would, you know, he would book us essentially to do the after party shows for his fashion lines.
And you're like building off each other's networks as well, because he has his own network in fashion.
Exactly. So we're all complementing each other. It was just a beautiful, beautiful synergy between different culture players in Ottawa. So throughout these activations and these parties, I would basically invite Naeem and tell him, hey, Naeem, come over. You can sleep in my dorm or sleep in Shaz's dorm. We have a party. Let's go out and celebrate. So that was the whole concept of Guys. That finished in 2020. I moved back to Toronto. And this is where like I marked like full-time artist management would be like, because anything prior to that was just kind of like free game. You're understanding what the environment
Yeah,
is.
you're at the conceptualization phase of like, let me understand this whole ecosystem. Let me understand the
Exactly.
players.
Let me know who's who.
Yeah.
Let me figure out what's what, who's doing what, you know. I still have my notes till today, like, you know, learning, you know, throughout university, learning what a record label is, what they do, who are the different players in a record label and what they do, what's a publisher, what's a distributor, what's a streaming service.
Can I just say one thing? Like, just hearing you talk, it sounds like you had that one spark, that one moment. And it doesn't have to be one moment. Maybe it was accumulation of moments, but that one time you heard that song walking home from your class, right? It sounds like it was like, you know, when you fall in love for the first
Of course,
time,
it's
right?
like love at first sight.
Yeah,
Exactly. And
like-
that's the relationship between me and the music industry. It was love at first sight.
So I just like to just hearing that, like it sounds like that's where the passion started, or you know, and it's so cool that you have so much passion when you talk about your career. You have so much passion when you talk about like your journey and your path. And I feel like a lot of people seek that in their jobs, right?
Of course. But again, like I think I found my passion because the first question that I had to answer for myself is, what are the things that I don't want to do?
Oh, so it starts with the don'ts.
It always starts with the
Yeah,
don'ts.
it's
Because
true,
it
though,
always
yeah.
starts with the don'ts, because once you know what you don't want to do, you then start to understand how to use your energy and efforts in advancing yourself in places you want to be in. Now that you have discovered you don't want to be in other places, you know what I mean?
Then you're not wasting your time in those other places.
Exactly.
So now you're filled with this time to do other things, and then you
Exact-
start moving closer and closer to
Exactly. So
the
that
environment.
that was like it all. My university experience, like I redid freshman year twice, right? I did freshman year in AUS, and then I redid freshman year again in Ottawa. Redoing freshman year again in Ottawa and going through my university experience made me figure out very key questions. One of them being is what is it that I don't want to do? And I have a huge list of things that I don't
Yeah.
want to do. And that helped me, you know, narrow down my focus, narrow down my passion, my interest. And, you know, once you go down that rabbit hole and you figure out like what's true to you and what you really like, I don't think so there's any force in this world that will stop you from being the greatest.
We were talking about, I don't know if I can mention this. We can cut it out worst case, but we were talking about someone you knew who had this career path as a doctor.
Yes.
And
That's
how
my guy Ali from this creative agency called The Real Use Offline. But yeah, Ali's a crazy story, you know. He's a med student doctor, essentially, works at a hospital in Toronto. But I've seen some of his short film work, and he's different with a camera. You could see and feel everything from that video, just because of like Ali's like execution and vision, and most importantly, eye for things, right? So I want to be able to help people like that, because if there are people that possess this powerful talent, then, you know, as a manager, it's almost your duty to put them in a place to shine. It's your duty to like make them look
you want to
good.
kind of like show the world this
Yeah,
art,
like
right?
show this world this diamond in the rough.
How do you balance like bringing out the artist's authentic self
Trial and error.
through, but then there's also like you understand the industry and you understand what the industry wants or what the audience might want. So how do you balance out like keep helping the artist stay true to themselves while also helping them navigate an industry that they need to adapt to?
In my opinion, when an artist starts out and, you know, decides to become an artist, you will never know your authentic self until you start putting out music, because it's a feedback system, right? It's a loop. You have to realize how this loop works to then further advance the artist's career, right? So let's look at it as a timeline. T0.
Well, I kind of look at it as like an experiment, right? Like you
Yes.
kind of
They're
you're a
trial and error.
scientist.
Exactly.
Yeah, and
Exactly.
you're trying different formulas, and each
Exactly.
time you get the end user trying it, getting feedback from the end user, and you keep adjusting from there.
Exactly. So all these business people in the industry, we can call them as cultural scientists, right? Because they are the people that bring different elements to the artist and create all these experiments that will show you, you know, whether it was a success or a failure. And then you always have to pivot and go back to the drawing board to conceptualize new projects and, you know, incorporate the feedback from the previous project, right? So if we put things into a timeline, you know, an artist creates a project, that's project number one. Artist has never released anything, right? All this work is going to be built from inspiration of certain demos, certain other big artists,
Or
certain
life
life
experience.
experiences or anything, right? So you start there. You put out, you create your first body of work, you put it out. You see what happens in the streaming world on the internet, online.
Yeah.
And on that basis, you start adjusting. Like, let's say you put out a project of like 6 songs. Each song is like a different vibe, feel, energy, persona, sound. Like they're not all cohesive, for example. But then when you release something like that, and then you start seeing, okay, track number 3 is more popular than track number 5 because, you know, you start understanding and you use these data points to
It's like a measure of
exactly. They're
Yeah.
all indicators, right?
Yeah,
They're all
yeah.
indicators. So you use all these indicators to assess and guide and find the true self of an artist or the actual authenticity of an artist. So again, it goes back to my point. It's trial and error.
Do you think artists, based on your experience, do you find artists have a hard time being vulnerable? Or like, do you see artists trying to kind of replicate and do what others are doing versus having an authentic voice and being really like vulnerable with like their own story and their own voice?
Artists will create music for, I would say, various reasons, right? One would be self-artistry and to explain their story and whatever message the artist has to say, right? And then there will be songwriting for the sake of helping other artists complete their songs and get credited on. So those are like the world. Your average Joe knows this as ghostwriting, which is songwriting, right? But they're not ghostwriting.
They're anonymous.
They're not anonymous. You can literally search them up online and figure out.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Wait, so if there's a ghostwriter for a song, I can find out who they are?
absolutely. What streaming service do you use?
Spotify.
Okay, open up Spotify. I'll show you something cool.
Okay.
Search up your favorite song.
Ooh, that's gonna be hard.
Any song that you love.
Can it be a remix?
Sure.
Okay, this is like an 80s song from a movie I just watched.
Okay.
Or a show.
Okay.
Okay.
Now let me show you.
Yeah, just
So,
do you want to click on it?
yeah,
It's the
yeah.
second one,
So,
Dirty Cash.
If you go to Dirty Cash
Yeah.
and you click on the 3 dots, song credits. Performed by this. But see, they don't have the people
Who wrote it?
they didn't credit them properly. But so you go, for example, to like a Drake record, right? Any Drake song, the Weeknd song, you
Yeah.
name it, right? One Dance, for example, biggest song credits. Look how many people wrote the song.
Oh my god, there's like 10 people that wrote this song.
10 people that wrote that song, 3 people that produced the beat, and these are the 2 labels that own it: Cash Money Records and Sony Music Publishing.
Does Drake write his music?
Yeah, I mean,
Some
like,
of it.
like, see, the writing songs is an exhaustive process.
Yeah.
It's a very exhaustive process. It's a very mental exhaustive process, right? And no, yeah, okay, yeah, there are some people that can write songs from start to finish all on their own. Some people need help. Some people write better when they work with other parts.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. They like to collaborate.
Yeah, they like to collaborate, right? So it's natural.
Yeah.
You know, like the world looks at ghostwriters as like, oh, this artist uses ghostwriters, he's a failure. No, that's wrong, bro. The reason why this music sounds good is because that's
You have different
You have different
perspectives.
perspectives, different inputs into the creation of the song that makes the song beautiful. Right?
That's actually a really nice way to think of it, because I always had that perspective of, oh, if they didn't write the music, then they're more of the performer, right? But I always thought if the artist wrote the music, like people say, like Taylor Swift writes all her music, and so it's really a reflection of her own life experiences and stuff like that, right? And people view it as more authentic.
What if the artist has a hard time of verbally translating certain life experiences?
So they get help with bringing it to life, which is kind of what your job is. Your job is bringing things to life as well, right?
Exactly.
So,
Exactly. So artists that use ghostwriters and them being not talented enough, I think that's a misconception.
Yeah. Because there's so much else that goes into like being an artist. You have
Of
to be a good
course.
performer, the vocals.
Personality.
Yeah. Also like the person. Yeah. So another thing I wanted to ask you about is like, do you help them kind of create or craft that persona that they go out with? Because I feel like a lot of artists end up like evolving over time, like the character that they
Yes,
go out with.
but they find that character through sonic evolution,
Okay.
right? So when you build that persona is described in the music being put out. That kind of makes sense.
Yeah. Okay. See what you're saying.
You get me?
Yeah. Because once music comes out, then
That the people start to build the perception,
right.
right, of that artist.
How much do you think of that perception is being driven by the management team versus just how people end up reacting to the
Is
music?
subjective. It's
Okay.
not on the management. It's on the management and teams to pair the artist with right creators in order to almost get the true authentic self of the artist. But then once the music is out, people build their own ideas of
Yeah.
it, right? And that's the beauty, right?
It's the beauty, but there's also, I feel like, harm in that because a lot of times I think the character that they build out for an artist may not be what they want to put out there.
Then it could be, then this is,
Because I feel like Drake, let's take Drake as an example. You know, like people make fun of Drake for being too soft or something. And then
Right.
he's like, well, I'm just being myself. But
Exactly.
you guys have created this like,
perception of
Yeah.
him being soft, right? Like it's his character, right?
Yeah.
It's his character. Drake has shown the world that, you know, you can be
multifaceted.
in different ways, different personas for different look at The Weeknd. The Weeknd, honestly, like every single project is a persona from start to finish, from when he released his, you know, House of Balloons and all these amazing pieces of work.
Yeah, he's really talented.
Of course,
Yeah.
till the current album that he's releasing today. Right? You know what I mean? Like every single album of The Weeknd is a persona.
It's a story.
It's a story, it's a persona, and it's a side. It's a side of The Weeknd.
Because he has this like weird Joker side.
Yeah,
but he
he
also
has
has his
this-
like old days.
Yeah, but
Weeknd.
all these sides talk to his personality.
Did you get to meet a lot of like famous people in your space?
Like being in this entertainment industry, you should be normal with the idea of meeting high-profile
Who's like
people.
the biggest artist you met?
I've seen Drake in passing in similar
Like
small
spaces.
similar spaces, small settings.
Yeah.
I've hung out with most of his team members, from Skip to Roy Woods to Smiley to Swavey Wolf to all the managers that are involved around him. I've also seen Chris Brown at a party in LA. I've met Tyler Yahweh, who's also signed to Dre London and Post Malone. Those people. I've also seen another rap artist, Lucky, as well. Similar place, similar space.
Would you feel like is misunderstood about artists, like from a viewer, from somebody very far
They're
removed?
very normal people. They do normal things like normal humans. They're normal. There's nothing.
It's so crazy how we idolize them.
They're normal. On stage, they're superstars. Behind stage, they're normal. Just like
Yeah.
me and you.
Yeah, you'd think that'd be
Nothing special happens behind the scenes.
What challenge do you see artists deal with the most in their careers or as they evolve, get bigger?
They use and abuse. They use and abuse.
What way?
Right, like when they grow, some artists end up get signed to management teams that just exploit the artist and their work in ways that, you know, could be very extremely profitable and revenue generating, but could also be deteriorating the mental health of the artist or like the mental well-being of the artist, right? So
So as you scale your venture, you own a record company,
Right.
right? So as you scale that, how will you ensure that you kind of keep the integrity of the artist while still trying to generate profit?
because again, it's all back to the values of the label. We're a family-based label. We're all family members. We're all friends. We all have the same common goals. And before everything else, we're humans, we're friends. You
It's
know what
about
I
the
mean?
people, right?
Exactly.
Because
Exactly.
you've clearly built some really important friendships in your life that you are lucky enough to work with, right?
Mm-hmm.
I feel like it'd be so fun to work with friends, but like you get to do that, and then that helps you ensure like you have trust because you've
Exactly.
built those relationships for so long, even outside of work.
Exactly. And I think the reason why it worked because all these relationships were built with the intent of being friends, being homies, that then evolved into a business that we all care about.
All right. I want to switch gears a little
For
bit.
sure.
I want to talk a bit about your background
Absolutely.
and having grown up in the Middle East. You're
Egyptian.
Arab, you're
Yeah.
Egyptian. I want to learn more about how just the challenges of trying to kind of pursue your passion while still trying to navigate, meeting family expectations and trying to make your parents proud, but also being true to yourself and what you want to pursue. So, can you tell me a little bit about what that's been like?
Of course. So my dad never lived in Canada. Always in the Middle East. My mom was the only individual from my parents that moved to Canada and lived here for 5 years. I think that experience that my mom had here in Canada, that experience opened her eyes on a few things. One of them being the level of acceptance my mom has for what I do versus the level of acceptance my dad has, right? So with that being said, my dad looks at my music work and all this great stuff that I know I'm doing, looks at it as like an expensive hobby, something that will always be a hobby in my dad's eyes. Why? Because, and I don't blame him. You know what I mean? I really don't.
Because that's how they
I
were
really don't.
raised.
Like, I really don't because my dad doesn't know what an entertainment industry looks like. And even if I try to explain to him, he just won't get it.
He
Right?
sees like the tip of the iceberg. He
Exactly.
sees Nancy Ajram,
Exactly.
like
He sees Amr Diab. He
big
sees Tamer
artists.
Hosni. He's like, I'll go see a show, right?
Yeah.
He
And then he
that.
sees what you're doing, which you're doing so much of like the background stuff that no one sees. And he's like, how
What?
does this
makes sense?
Yeah.
Exactly. So I was a trouble kid in general. I've moved like 5 different high schools just because I kept getting kicked out of every single one. And growing up, because me being the eldest, my dad didn't really like what was happening because I would always be in trouble and always get kicked out. Like my dad didn't really think that, I'd be able to stand on my own feet, unfortunately. But, again, all these experiences in my past have led me or shaped me into what I am today. And I think this is very, very important, And one thing that I, really don't want to do is I don't want to disappoint my dad. So that's why I have this double life. I work as a financial consultant at Canada Post. That's my day job. And then at night, I have this whole record label life that I live with artists. And I balance between both. And when I'm talking to my mom, when I'm talking to my mom, I'm telling her about all the music ideas and all this great stuff that I'm doing. But when I'm talking to my dad, I'm telling him the advancements I'm doing at Canada Post. Right? So it's like
you're
different.
tailoring your message.
Yes, to with each
Depending on
parent,
how accepting the
how
parent
accepting the parents are. So it's a tough job, right? It's a tough balance because they both are. I do them both full time, right? So it's some days are rough, some days are tough, some days are, I'm going crazy in my house. Like there's too much pressure, there's too much things going on. There's so many places I have to perform at, but I always remind myself as to why I did this or why I started this. And, I'm
And
20.
you'd rather be stressed, you'd rather have that pressure on your shoulders than not, right?
Of
I think
course.
that's the distinction between
I absolutely. And I think this is one of the reflections that I've had in the past, right? When I was just sitting by myself. I think pressure is a privilege.
that's such a great perspective.
Pressure is 100% a privilege because once you feel you're pressured, then there is this inherent knowing that you need to perform and people are watching you and people are expecting you to do things, right?
You have to take action.
You have to take action, and taking no action actually hurts you than taking an action that actually goes wrong. You know what I mean? So like pressure is privilege because when you start feeling pressure, you start you start realizing that what you're doing is actually right.
And you're making moves. And like you said, whether or not like you make a mistake, you're still making a move
Every
towards.
mistake is a lesson. Again, I was a troubled kid. I switched, like, my whole life was a bunch of mistakes and failures. I was in this school, couldn't complete it, failed, switch another school, couldn't complete it, failed, switch
Yeah.
another school until I graduated high school. So I was in problems all the time, and I was in situations all the time, and I was trying to do this, but it failed. But I found myself in this situation. Okay, I'm in deep trouble. Like, I was a troubled kid. Like, if my dad was here, he would tell you. He would tell you how
Tell the
much.
stories.
Yeah. And if you want to understand what a troubled kid is, at the age of 13, I cost my dad 100,000 dirhams, which is $30,000 for just doing some, sorry for my language, up shit, mistakes, right?
Yeah.
My dad, again, this is something that I'm not proud of speaking of, but again, it's these experiences that I'm not afraid of talking about it, because it's the experiences that shaped me.
I almost feel like what could be coming from all of that anger as a kid might be you trying to get out of the box that you felt maybe trapped in. I'm just
For sure.
This is just my perception, right?
And I'll tell you, like, one of the happiest conversations I've ever had in my dad as of recent. So my dad's buying a new car in the UAE. He hit me up and he's like, "Oh no, I'm gonna go buy a new car, blah blah blah." I'm like, "Okay, yeah, no problem. You know, let me know what you pick. You know, include me in that decision if you want to." So then my dad ends up hitting me up and he's like, "Oh, I walked into this dealership in Dubai, and the sales manager recognized me." I'm like, "What? How?" He's like, "Do you know this guy?" I'm like, "Yeah, of course I know this guy." He's like, "Yeah, he's like, Nour, like, that sales manager recognized me because of you posting me on your story and all the pictures and stuff. And then as soon as I walked into that dealership, the whole relationship changed." So my dad
good way?
in a very good way, in
Okay.
a very good way, because like, he had the manager take care of my dad because he knew that this person that's Nour's dad, you know. So I'm gonna just take care of him because I know Nour, you know. And that was just like a beautiful, like, moment in general, is that I'm here in Canada, my dad's all the way in Dubai, walks into a random dealership, gets identified by a random sales manager because he knows me,
And like
and then ends up helping the sale and making everything and the customer transaction at the dealership so much smoother and nicer.
was this like the first time your dad saw the value of what you're doing?
Exactly. Understood that why I was troubled, like, why all these communities, why all these problems and people, like, they all, you know, they all came out they'll all come form into like good relationships and people and network.
Going back to the whole parents thing, I feel like I have a lot of empathy for it, and I have a lot of empathy for even like your dad who may not understand what you do yet and may not see it fully, like the full value of what you're doing, because I feel like their generation valued success in a different way.
Of course.
I think they viewed success as stability,
Facts.
as something that was like a long term, like having a job for a long time meant that you were stable and you were able to uphold that job, right?
Right.
Versus now, I think our generation, we're able to kind of break free from that ideology a bit and kind of see shifts in career as a good thing.
So I'll tell you a beautiful thing. So I'm more entrepreneurial in mindset and in risks in general from any of my family members. Both my parents, you know, as I mentioned, they're pharmacists. They worked for big multinational pharmaceutical firms for like over 30, 40 years. My mom currently works for a pharmaceutical firm called MSD. MSD and what's Organon? Yeah, MSD Organon. Organon now is like a separate organization. So my mom works for Organon and she's in the regulatory side of things. My dad was also the same thing. He worked for a private German pharmaceutical company called Barger Ingelheim, and he was the head of government relations. Very high positions.
Very
but
successful,
Very
yeah.
successful positions too, right? But they spent 30, 40 years working in corporations
up.
and going up and elevating and climbing the whole organizational structure and ladder, right? But then as I grew up and as I came and my dad started seeing what I do, one of my second favorite conversations with my dad was when my dad called me overnight 2 years ago and was like, "I quit."
Oh, wow.
I'm like, "Wow, Dad, why?" He's like, "I see what you do, and I don't know." He's like, my dad's 55, right? And I think
Which is young.
which is young, but I think it clicked in his mind that, after working 30 years for an organization, he's like, why don't I take a chance on myself and do it? My son's doing it. So I feel like I've also, being in music, although I have to like uphold a certain image in front of my dad, I think just by time and my mom and my mom's level of acceptance to what I do, that kind of spilled on my dad's thought process that over time inspired him to quit and go start his own organization.
Wow. So he started his own.
Yeah, he started his own business. Yeah, he started his own venture. It's a company called Quality Craft. My dad basically he's a distributor for a very, very common piece of filter paper that is used in the manufacturing of like drinks, water, cement, anything that uses liquid. Those filter papers are put in the production process to filter those liquids and control the bacteria levels in it. So my dad's a distributor of those like very unique, niched resources that are used in like the liquid drinks, beverages industry.
It's so incredible to like get older and watch your parents soften up a bit. I feel I've experienced it. Like I've watched how my parents have softened up more and are more vulnerable. And it's like this beautiful thing that I hope everybody gets to experience. And like just even the way that you describe your parents, like it sounds like they are open to kind of.
My parents are super cool. Like outside of like work and I understand the pressure that they put it comes out of a very good place. It's like they want the safety for their kids. They want the stability for their kids, right? And even me, when I'm single, when I have a wife or when I have kids, I will probably think the same way, right? But I will probably be a little bit more lenient because, I'm a new age parent. We're new age, adults, which is completely different than the brand and style of adults that our parents come from, right? So it's cool. I love it. And I'm so happy that I'm at this age. My parents are still healthy. They're still going, and we get to like, change,
watch each other evolve,
watch each other change, watch each other find new interests, discover new things. Because like historically, all my family members are all science backgrounds, right? They all come from science backgrounds, whether they're professors, whether they're, my grandma, my grandfather, both on my mom and my dad's side were professors at the University of Cairo in chemistry and math. You know what I mean?
You come from a very
educated, like
academic background,
like very heavy academic background, right? And my aunt, she's an engineer. My mom, pharmacist. My dad, pharmacist, right? Like,
see, I can understand you as a child wanting to find your own unique path and feeling a little bit constrained, not in like a bad way, but just like that just wasn't your path. That just wasn't your calling.
I never found interest in being a pharmacist or a doctor. That's what my parents wanted me to be from the get-go. My mom would always push me around.
I mean, every era parent.
Yeah, but like
ideally.
at grade 10 and 11, my mom and dad were pushing me to go towards the science track and end up in pharmacy because they have relationships in the pharmaceutical world. Right? Like when I have my kids, I'm pushing my kids to any creative industry. Yo, go be a filmmaker, man. Go produce some beats.
Instead of pushing you inwards towards existing connections, you want to push them outwards towards new opportunities.
100%. And I'm saying this right now. If my son or my daughter, if I am able to identify a hobby at a very young age, I'm abandoning school. It's worthless.
Wait, you would help your kid drop out of school and pursue their hobby.
100%.
Okay.
That's an investment on its own. Look at Lewis Hamilton. Look at his story.
I love Lewis Hamilton.
Yeah, but look at his story. He was a talented driver at a very young age. Mm-hmm. His dad put every single resource that he has to build his first car and to go and try out.
Oh. I know he's also raised by two women, like his mom and his stepmom as well.
Yes.
So he had a good family presence.
He has good family presence, but his dad was also there in the very early beginning that gave him the initial push. Mm-hmm. Like, I got you. I support you. Go.
I believe in
it.
Yeah.
And look at Lewis Hamilton now.
Yeah.
So like stories like this, why put my student through an institutionalized way of education.
Yeah.
He can be homeschooled. If we're going to talk about like, social skills, well, he'll develop those social skills and probably even better skills being in a team environment, working with people on teams with a goal, right? Or an interest of winning, right? So if I do discover my kids if I do discover that my kids have some sort of talent, I'm exploiting that at the earliest age possible.
Yeah.
I'm not thinking twice.
And also for your case, you're the eldest too.
Yes.
So I feel like there's always that added pressure when you're the oldest of the family to like meet the, like I was lucky my sister became a doctor.
The pressure's been removed.
Oh, like, cool. She did the thing, you know what I mean?
She took one for the team. So my brother is essentially your sister
Right.
in terms of like the academia and like the stellar grades and the performance and guess what? Me and my brother are both finance majors. Well,
Okay.
but this is the difference between me and my brother. My brother's graduated finance from McMaster, DeGroote School of Business, top tier school in Canada, and graduated with honors and distinction. He's younger than me by 3 years. He's 24 and he's about to finish a CFA level 3. I don't think so. I've ever seen.
It takes years to get your there's the 3 levels.
There's 3 levels, but yeah, he passed level 1, level 2, and now he's on his level 3, and he's incredible. He's a stellar individual.
I feel like if they have one kid like that, like the others should be able to do whatever they want. I'm just saying.
Exactly. So, this is the dynamic within my family, right? My brother is this like image of perfect grades, perfect like academia, everything, and then there's me where like, okay, I passed school, I passed high school, but
you challenge the norm. Do you still feel like, even though you are successful, you've amassed that success, and your parents are starting to see that as well, do you still feel like part of you is trying to fit that norm or prove something to either others, yourself?
So music to me has more than one goal, right? Obviously the success in representing an artist and, building something good and great, right? And the second example is I want to show my friends, the people that at least are around me, that if they take matters into their own hands, they believe in themselves, they find their passion and stick to it, and they stick to the script, nothing is impossible. Because if you look at my history in general, I'm a Middle Eastern kid from Egypt, born and raised in Dubai, that moved to Canada in 2015 with 0 friends. I don't have family here, I don't have friends here, I don't have anything. I came with a suitcase to dorms. And through that experience, I've made all this possible. So then the lesson is, if you take matters to your own hands and you put something into your mind that you want to accomplish, I don't think so there's any force in this world that will stop you. Like, you will accomplish, I truly believe that, like, you will accomplish whatever you want to accomplish.
If you could make Ottawa lit, you can do anything.
Yeah. If you could if you could have fun in Ottawa, you could, I'm
just saying, that is in itself success.
In own success, yeah. But yeah, that's like, this is like, I say this because I'm a byproduct of what I'm saying.
Yeah.
I took matters into my own hands. I believed in myself. I focused on everything that I focused on things that I didn't like, found my purpose, knew who I wanted to support, and knew what I wanted to do, knew what type of contributions I wanted to provide. And because of this, who knew that 2015 Nour would be doing this today? You know what I mean? And I'm not done yet. Like small wins here and there for sure, they make the game worth it, right? But there's so much more that I want to accomplish. There's so many different things that I want to support. All the people, all the great creatives that I like, shouted out, such as Naeem, Quasi, Paris, the creative agency, the real Use Offline, my boy Danny V and his team, all the great producers out in Egypt, Mob Beats, my main producer, shout out Sins, all these great people that contribute to really cool cultural projects, whether it be music or film. Like, it's beautiful. I like it. I love it. I want to support this. I want to support these people. I want to help them shine, and I want to help them evolve. And if these people can trust me, then I hope I won't let them down.
Yeah. That was beautifully said. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Is there anything you wanted to still share that you didn't get a chance to talk about?
No, I think we spoke about everything.
Yeah.
Is there any sort of a...
I love to hear stories.
Yeah?
Like, do you have any like fun stories of like meeting new artists or?
Yeah. So I'll explain the Drake...
The Drake story.
the Drake tour that happened last year. So it was me and 4 of my boys, Majd and Moody Zain, Marwan and Goma. So me, Marwan and Goma are all like born in July. So last year we went to Montreal to like to celebrate our birthdays and have a good time. And this is the beauty of like being in music, right? I had no idea that Drake was in Montreal, first of all. Second of all, we were just there in Montreal just to have fun. No intention to even go to a Drake concert, right? On a Saturday morning, I wake up, I'm on Instagram, and I see that one of Drake's really good friends, Skip, shout out Skip, he's one of my older brothers in the music industry. He posts pictures in Montreal. So I hit up Skip. I'm like, Skip, you're in Montreal? He's like, yeah, man, I'm in Montreal. Like, what are you doing? I'm like, I'm in Montreal too. Like, what are you doing? You know, we had this like conversation, and I'm like, yo, I'm here with my friends. And he's like, oh, it's your birthday. I'm like, yeah. He's like, okay. He's just he looked at me, he's like, just pull up to the Bell Center and just go to the box office tickets and just say your name. I'm like, okay, cool, no problem.
Love it.
So I go back to the
So you
boys.
weren't even trying to go to a concert that night?
No, he just told me over the phone. He's like, just
show up.
7:30, come to the box office, Bell Center. That's it.
Love it.
That's it. So I go back to my friends. I'm like, guys, I think I have a plan. 7:30, we're gonna go to the box office to the Bell Center Arena. They're like, for what? I'm like, yo, Drake's in town. I don't know. We'll probably get tickets. So they're like, okay, sure, no problem. Like, nobody really expected anything. They're
Right.
like, okay, whatever, like.
But you guys were there for your birthday,
We're
so
there
it
for
makes
our
it even
birthday.
more fun.
Yeah, but like it was like a
You're there to celebrate.
We're there to celebrate, but we did like only whatever I got from Skip was like, okay, 7:30 box office.
You didn't know what came next.
Nothing came next.
Okay.
So the whole day we're like sitting down, me and my friends, they're like, okay, so like, what type of tickets are we gonna get? What's this? What's that? Like, oh, what's going on? Blah blah blah. So go to the box office. It's 7:30. We're all dressed up and we're all going out. We go to the Bell Center. It's 7:30. Go to the box office. The guy's like, oh, show me your ID. Give him the ID. Nour Henien. Get the ID. Comes back with a big black envelope, right, with the OVO owl on it.
Oh, yeah.
And it's handwritten, signed, right? And they gave me, the guy came, he's like, oh, here's your envelope. I'm like, what? Open the envelope, 5 wristbands and 5 tickets. Those
Just
tickets,
like that.
I look at the tickets, and then I gave the tickets to my boys, and we put on the wristbands, and we're walking. Like, nobody really looked at the ticket, really, until we got to the scanning point. So we're going into it. Guy scans, he looks at the ticket, he's like, oh, this is friends and family. You're not supposed to be here. Everybody looks at me and like, what? What? Like, what's going on? Oh, he's like, oh, come, let's escort you. Escort us backstage. Go backstage into the friends and family pit. They have, in the friends and family pit, they had like their own bar for like the whole crew. So Roy Woods was there, Smiley was there, Chubbs, like the entire OVO crew was there. And it's just me and 4 of my boys amongst all these people. And we're drinking, it's an open bar, life's good. And then concert starts, they all escort us all out into this like VIP section. It's like a riser on its own, and it's only for friends and family.
So
Had the
where
best
in the
class seats.
where in like the arena were you
So
placed?
if this is the center of the stage, and this was like the Virgil Abloh sign, there are 2 VIP risers right next to the Virgil Abloh statue that is overlooking at the stage. No obstructed
There's
view.
no one in front of you.
Zero. Just Drake. In zoom, in like like you don't even need to zoom. You
Holy
can just pull up the
shit.
camera and just take a picture.
That's a dream.
Yeah, and then on the way out, We're going out of the same exit. Drake's just walking by out of the same exit.
And were you like trying to be cool? Or
No,
did you
just
talk
walk.
to him?
No, just act cool.
But you couldn't, like, you didn't want to talk to him or say anything?
In situations like that, just act cool.
Yeah. You don't want to be an annoying,
Yeah. You don't want to be annoying. You don't want to do any of that stuff. You just act cool. The man's working, and he just passed in front of you. So that was like one of those perks, that just happened.
Sick.
Some other perks and cool stories were like, flying out to the Cayman Islands and producing Winterfest.
Oh.
Yeah, so built the whole stage for Shensia, Alcala, and Kerwin Dubois, and Egyptian, 4 of the biggest Caribbean artists. And yeah, we did
I love Egyptian. What?
Yeah. So we were together.
Did you get to meet them too?
I was giving them his room keys and sorting out his transportation and making sure he gets his meals and sound check and all that like beautiful stuff of like producing a show essentially.
Yeah.
So I was like liaison between that. I was also managing like the finances too. So like going to business school and having finance and entrepreneurship experience really does help. Because then I found myself in like really cool operational spaces where I had to utilize this financial skills and
you're wearing so many different hats as well
Yeah,
in
yeah.
your job. I was going to say, where can they find you?
Yeah, NourHenien anywhere.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you so much, Rim. This has really been a very, very great conversation.
Yeah, I loved
Thank you.
hearing your story. I love how relatable you are, and you're very down to earth, and I think a lot of people will enjoy this. So, yeah.
I hope so. Thank you,
Awesome.
thank you,
Thank
thank
you so
you.
much.